Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our final English lesson of the week in Year 4. We've been moving through Varjak Paul at quite a pace, and what we're going to do this morning is start with Chapter 12, because it'll be really important for this morning's lesson. And you're going to be using a letter using powerful adjectives and powerful verbs this morning. So it's all about the description. Okay, so we'll start with Chapter 12. You'll need to go find your copy of Chapter 12 either on Microsoft Teams or on the website. Press pause while you're finding it and press play when you're ready to listen and follow. Chapter 12. So Varjak walked in the other direction. He shivered as he walked. The grass felt wet and clammy cold beneath his paws. The sky was clear after the storm, but it looked hollow and black, as though the rain had washed even the moon and stars away. It was much worse being alone now that he'd had a moment with Holly and Tam. It made him realise how alone he'd been before and how lonely he was again now. Still, he had to get on with his mission. Find the dog, take it home, beat the gentleman and his cats. The city loomed up ahead. From the hill he'd seen it all and how it fitted together, but on ground level he couldn't see further than the nearest building. Even the smallest of them blocked his way. Their thick brick walls reared up before him, higher than the Contessa's house. The night was full of strange sounds too. Things were rumbling, bells ringing, sirens wailing. What did it all mean? How was he going to find his way through it? He badly needed help. Holly and Tam seemed to know what they were doing, but they were gone and they weren't coming back. Varjak walked through a gate at the park's edge. Beyond it was a narrow pavement and a wide black road, lined by orange street lamps. They looked like spiny orange trees with clusters of light on their branches instead of the sweet scent of fruit. They smelt sharp and electric, buzzing nervously over him. He felt exposed in their glare. Further down the pavement, he could hear people, groups of them. Some were talking, others were laughing or shouting at each other. His fur prickled, remembering the men who came to the Contessa's house that night. He didn't want to be seen. It felt too risky out here on his own. Across the road, there was a quiet-looking alleyway between the brick houses. It looked a safer place to be. Varjak stepped onto the pavement and froze in his tracks. Before him, lined up on the edge of the road, was a whole column of shiny metal monsters. They stood in single file, stock still. They weren't moving or making any sound. Their eyes were dull and lightless, their round black wheels at rest. But they were dogs, and this was Varjak's chance to talk to them. "Excuse me," he said. They didn't react, not even a flicker in the eyes. Perhaps they were sleeping. He took a deep breath and crept closer to them, ready to run if they suddenly awoke. He slunk onto the road, stretched out a paw, and gingerly touched a monster's smooth metal flank. It was cold, not asleep, but dead. Varjak shivered at the thought. Far away, but closing in, something shrieked, something roared. Varjak's heart thudded in his chest as he turned to face it. The shrieking, roaring noise grew louder. It was a pack of dogs, live ones, and they were coming down the road towards him. He'd forgotten how fast and wild they were. In motion, they blurred beneath the streetlights. Their yellow eyes were open, so round and bright that they seemed to pierce his skull. He couldn't meet their gaze. He had to look away. No wonder people were scared of them. Varjak quaked as the monsters roared past. One after another, after another. They were massive, mighty, unstoppable. In their wake came that foul, choking smell. It made him cough and cough and cough. He cowered in the lethal wind, watched the red eyes at the back recede into the distance. What should I do, Jalal? Awareness, the second skill. Before you do anything, you must know what you are dealing with. Assume nothing, be sure of the facts. All right. The fact was, these dogs wouldn't notice him if he just sat there and called out to him. They wouldn't even hear him. He had to make one of them stop. That came first. There was only one way to do it, and Varjak's stomach tightened as he realised what it meant. He was going to have to stand in front of them in the middle of the road as they sped towards him. Then they'd see him and would have no choice but to stop. It would take courage, but he could do it. He could do it. He was sure he could. Deep inside him, something shrugged his shoulders and walked away. Absolutely not, it said. I'm not Jalal. I'm not even Julius. The dogs are never going to stop for me. Even if they see me, they'll just run me over. They'll kill me. Look at them. They're huge, heartless monsters. They don't slow down for anything. It's pointless even to try. But he had to try. The elder Paul gave his life so that he could try. Him and no one else. That sacrifice would mean nothing unless Varjak was prepared to risk his own life too. And hadn't he always wanted a chance to prove himself a proper Mesopotamian blue? Varjak closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and strode out into the road to the very centre of the dog's path. Another pair of yellow eyes appeared in the distance. He could smell the foul breath from here. He could hear the deafening roar. The tales were right. These monsters filled his heart with fear. It clawed at his insides as they came towards him. "Stop!" he yelled. The eyes were big and dazzling. Varjak looked straight into them. He ignored the piercing pain they made in his head. He ignored his muscles, screaming at him to run from this oncoming beast. He stood his ground. He remembered the elder Paul in the garden, facing up to the gentleman's black cats. So brave. That was what he needed now. "Please stop!" he shouted. "I have to talk to you." The eyes grew bigger and bigger. The monster was coming closer and closer, and behind it he could see others of its kind, a whole pack of them. Good. He was smack in front of him. They wouldn't get past without going through him. Jalal could do this. I can do it too. The monsters kept coming, and still he stood his ground, though he had to dig claws into tarmac to stop himself running. "I need your help," he yelled. "Please, please, please." But the monsters weren't slowing. They were speeding. They were shrieking, roaring, bearing down on him. Huge, deadly. "Stand your ground! Stand your..." Fur fluttered, fur flattened. Monsters roared over his head, to his left, to his right, to his left, and were gone. Varjak stayed flat on the ground, cowering, crushing himself into the tarmac. Even though the dogs were gone and all his hopes of saving the family with them, he crawled across the hard black road to the other side, still not daring to stand up straight. His body shook with shock. If he'd moved, if he'd even breathed as they passed over him, they would have destroyed him. He'd come within a whisker of death, he knew that, but that wasn't the worst of it. The worst of it was that he'd failed. And that's the end of that chapter. Okay, so if we remember, our learning intention was to be able to write a letter using powerful adjectives. If we move on this morning, I want to think about the chapter that we've just read. So can you think of any of the descriptive words and phrases that the author used to describe the dog? Press pause now. We've got 4 or 5 minutes to just have a little think and come back. What descriptive language did the author use? Press pause now and press play when you're ready. Okay, so I've got up here some of the descriptive language that the author has used. So we had shiny metal monster, eyes dull and sightless, smooth metal, and that would have been flank, smooth metal flank, massive, mighty and unstoppable, roaring and shrieking, eyes bright, yellow and round. So if these are our descriptive words, and you might have still got a few more that you might want to use, what do you think it is that Varjak has actually found? How do you know that? What makes you think that? Press pause while you're thinking and press play when you're ready to come back. Okay, well, quite clearly, Varjak has not found a dog, has he? He's found a car, okay? The fact it talked about eyes dull and sightless while they're at the side of the road means that they're not being used. They're just, they're locked and sat at the side of the road. Smooth metal flank, roaring and shrieking. The foul breath is the exhaust, isn't it? Fumes coming from the back of the car. Yellow lights at the front, red lights at the back. Okay, so yeah, Varjak has found a car, but he thinks it's a dog. Okay, mainly because he was told it was it's the most scary, dangerous monster he could find in the outside world. Okay, I want us to look at the following Waggle. Now, this is a letter that I've written pretending that I'm Varjak Paul, and I've written to his father. Okay, and he's explaining about what's happened when he thinks he's found the dog. So he's basically going to be using all the descriptive language in that chapter and putting it into the letter. So he's going to be describing the dog using all the descriptive language. So let's go. Dear Father, I hope that you and the rest of the family are okay and that you are not too sad about what's happened to the elder Paul. Guess what? I have located a dog. In fact, I have located lots of dogs. You won't believe how scary they are. Did you know that a dog is in fact a shiny metal monster? I found one sleeping at the side of the road. I have discovered that a sleeping dog's eyes are dull and sightless, while when they are awake, the eyes are bright, yellow and round, just like the moon. When I touched the dog, I discovered it was made of smooth metal. No wonder that when dogs run, they are massive, mighty and unstoppable. They roar and shriek like thunder and lightning in a stormy sky. All I need to do now is to get one of these mighty monsters to help. See you soon, Varjak. Okay, so first of all, this morning in this Waggle, you can see that I've used, if I highlight them all up, you can see that I've taken the descriptive language from the text. If you remember the list of words I had back here, I've put into the letter. Shiny metal monster, bright yellow and round like the moon, eyes are dull and sightless, massive, mighty, unstoppable, roar, shriek, smooth metal. So I've tried to put as many of the descriptive words as I can into my letter. Okay, they're all good, powerful adjectives, good describing words. Some of them are roaring, shrieking, are powerful verbs. So all the time when I'm describing the dog or the car, I'm making sure that I am making the description as powerful as I possibly can. What I'd also like you to do, you've got 3 or 4 minutes. I want you to press pause in a moment while you're looking. I want you to look at the Waggle. Can you find any of the Year 4 writing objectives in there? There are a few. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through it this morning, but I want you to be identifying them for yourself again. What can you find in there? So press pause now, 3 or 4 quick minutes, and then come back together while I'll introduce the independent task. Okay, welcome back. Now, one thing I am going to ask you to do, when we're writing our letter this morning, you know you must be Varjak, so you're going to have to write using first person again. I, me, our, us, we, all of those sort of words, okay? So you're writing a letter to the family of cats at Contessa's house, explaining what a dog is and what it looks like. To describe the dog, I want you using powerful adjectives and verbs. Feel free to use the examples from the Waggle or insert some descriptive ideas and language of your own, okay? So you can use make up description if you want to, or use the descriptive language that we've already got. You can use the Waggle, or you could go back, wind the video back and use the list, okay? You've got probably just under around about 25 minutes to write this letter. I want it to be neat, tidy, because I want to have a good look at these, because I think you're going to be having a good go at describing these cars or dogs, using some brilliant descriptive language. Okay, so I'm going to let you go. When you're finished, okay, then you may, what you'll need to do before Monday, before the next lesson, so you can do it at the end of this, or you can do it over the weekend if you want. I want you to listen to the next 2 chapters in the story. So chapters 13 and 14 in the story. You'll find them as separate video files on the website. So use that, listen to the next 2 chapters in the story, and I'll see you on Monday. So take care. Bye-bye.